Now, completing the square is a super important skill for your SAT and ACT tests. And this is the first kind of problem, the first type of problems that will require you to use completing the squares. So what you do is look at this x variable over here and take the number, the coefficient in front of x, which is 10, and then divide it by 2, so you get 5. And this is a very important number. We're going to use this a lot. And then you square this. You square this to get 25. Now this 25 you're going to add over here. So you get x squared minus 10x plus 25, but you also need to add it over here because you need to add equal values to both sides of the equation. Now the next step is easy. Let's just move this to the side here and let's just simplify this idea to the left hand side. Again, remember we've gotten the 5 over here, so let's just write this as a completed square, and that's the important part over here. This 25 is your magic number which completes the square. In other words, all of these terms can be collected and put like this, x minus something squared. And what's this something? This something is exactly this quantity 5 over here. So let's just write down x minus 5 squared is equal to, and then simply let's just write this 10 plus 25 gives you 35. Okay, almost there now. You've got a square over here, so to get the actual answer, you just need to take the square root. So you're going to have x minus 5 is equal to, remember you're taking the square root on this side, so you need to take the square root of this. So you're just going to write is equal to square root of 35. Now there's the other, like the evil twin of 35. When you take the square root of 35, it's going to be negative square root of 35. So you've got two values here, x minus 5 is equal to 35 and x minus 5 is equal to negative square root of 35. And then simply add 5 to both sides like this over here. So you're going to have x is equal to 5 plus square root of 35. This is your first answer, and then of course over here you're going to add 5 to both sides to get x is equal to, of course these 5's cancel out, so does this. X is equal to 5 minus square root of 35, and that's your second answer. So to recap, remember you take the 10 in front of the x like so over here, and then you divide it by 2, then you square it. This is the most important concept for completing the square. And then you use this 5, it's going to come over here, and then you can solve this equation. Let's try one more problem, a slightly harder one, and then see if you can try it. All right, a very similar problem. You can pause the video if you want and try to solve it yourself. Here it's very similar. It's actually a quadratic equation, but the first thing you want to do is you want to move this 5 to the other side. So let's add the 5. So you add 5 to both sides. So this is gone. And so now our equation looks like x squared minus 12x is equal to 5. Now this looks like very much like the previous type of an equation that we written down. You solve the same way. You're going to take this 12 over here, which is in front of x, and you will, let's write it over here. You take 12, you divide it by 2. That's your important thing. This is your super important number, and then you square it and you get 36 over here. So this number now, this 36 number, you're going to add to both sides of the equal sign here like this. And then this whole thing has actually been completed. The square has been completed. So you can collect all of these terms and put them inside. Remember, you put x minus, I hope you remember what's over here. It's this number here. There's 6 here. And let's not forget the square sign here is equal to 5 plus 36, which is 41. And then you square root both sides. That's the usual strategy. So you write down x minus 6 is equal to, you're square rooting it, so you get is equal to square root of 41. These are very standard problems. So remember, you need to square root this, but also let's not forget the negative square root sign here as well. Remember, there are two answers whenever you square something. The reason is when you square a negative, you will come back to plus 41. Okay, so that's why you need two values. And then simply add 6 over here. So you're adding 6 and 6 over here, and therefore these cancel out. And so your answer, of course, let's not forget to add the 6 over here. And then your answer is just this value and this value. All right, so pause the video and see if you can solve this one and post your answers in the comments and I will check if you've gotten the correct answer. If you're having any questions, also please post them in the comments section so either myself or one of your friends who are also watching the video can answer them. Now let's move on to the next type of questions where you might be asked to use completing the squares. Now, the second type of a problem where you might be needed to use the completing the squares method is where you need to find the vertex of a parabola. Remember, this is a quadratic, and so this quadratic, when you plot it in Desmos, it looks like a parabola. And this parabola has this lower point called the vertex, and you might be asked to find the coordinates of this vertex, this point and this value, the x and the y coordinates. Now, we're going to use completing the square to find the vertex of this parabola. In other words, the lowest, the minimum point, or even the maximum point. All right, so let's get started. You do the same thing. Remember, you've got the x variable here, so the coefficient in front of x is 8, and we're going to use the same idea as before. You take 8, you divide it by 2, you get 4, which is going to be a very important number. And remember, you divide it and then you square it, you get 16 over here. Now, all you need to do is you add 16 here, and then remember earlier you were adding 16 here, but you're not going to add 16 here. In fact, instead of adding 16 here, you add 16 here and you subtract 16 here. Okay, you're adding 16 and you're subtracting, because plus 16 minus 16 is really 0, right? So that's what you're doing. You're taking it from the right pocket and putting it in the left pocket. So really net the change is 0. But what happens is this part now becomes a complete square. So you've completed the square here, all right? So let's think about this idea now. You've got x squared minus 8x plus 16. You can collect it together. I hope by now you remember how to do this. You take x, you copy down this negative sign here like so, and then this part over here, what do you put inside here? Of course, it's going to be a square sign. What do you put inside here? You're going to take this number and you want to put in here like this. Okay, so this part is actually the completed square. And then this part is you just simply want to evaluate it. So 5 minus 16 gives you negative 11. And just like that, this problem is almost done. You don't have to proceed any further. All you need to understand is this value is your x coordinate. So this is your x coordinate, and this value, including the negative sign, is your y coordinate. Remember, there's a negative here, okay? So you need a negative 4, and then this is your x value, and this is your y value of the vertex. So if you have a parabola, you've gotten the 4 and the negative 11 values over here. Incidentally, this is also called the vertex form, the vertex form of the parabola. So this is your vertex form over here. But remember, the more important thing is you do the completing the square concept, and you've got 4, you square it, you get 16, and you immediately have this answer 4 over here, and then you add and subtract negative 16, and you should be getting your answer. Let's try another problem of this type. This time we have a plus, and let's see how we can deal with this. So again, the same thing. By now you're become boss at this. Take the 12 because it's the number in front of x, divided by 2, you get 6, square it, you get 36. These are going to be your important numbers. So remember, you add 36 here, you've completed the square. Because you add 36, you're going to subtract 36 here. All right. Now this part is a completed square, and then you can write this as x plus 6 the whole squared. Where did the 6 come from? It came from here. You can also think about the 6 as being the square root of 36. So you can think about it this way as well. And then you collect these two terms together. You got 5 and 36, which gives you negative 41. And just like that, the answer is almost done. So the way you want to write this is, because it's got a plus here, you can think about this as x minus negative 6. So because minus minus becomes a plus, right? So you write this as x minus negative 6 squared minus 41. And so the actual values are negative 6 and negative 41, this negative included. Okay, so the question is, what is the vertex? What are the coordinates of the vertex of this quadratic equation of this parabola? And the answers are, and the x coordinate is negative 6, and then the y coordinate is negative 41. 1. And that's your answer. Now, before we move on, pause the video and see if you can find the vertex form or the vertices of this equation. It's going to be x minus what squared plus what. And those are going to be your answers here for the vertex. So post your answers in the comments because, as you know, practice makes perfect. So keep practicing, keep solving these problems, post your comments so others can also see it. Let's move on to the final type. Now, completing the square can also be used to find the center and the radius of a circle. You're going to do the same idea again. Because you've got x here, you take the number in front of x, which is 10. And then the same thing, you divide by 2, you get 5. And then you square the 5 to get 25. Now you add 25 to both sides here, like so. Here. Now, this is a slightly more involved problem. You've got the y concepts as well. You've got the y coordinates as well. So you take 12 again because now it's in front of the y term over here, right? You take 12, you divide it by 2, you get 6. Then you square this and you get 36, right? So you're going to add 36 to both sides. So I'm going to add 36 to both sides over here. Now you've got two completed squares, this one and then you've got this one as well. So let's kind of combine them together. Let's collect these terms. So you've got x minus, I think you know what to do now, x minus, this part over here is going to be 5. So you're going to write x minus 5 squared. And then you've got y minus another thing here, y minus 6 squared. Okay, y minus 6 squared. And this part is going to be equal to 13 plus 25 plus 36, which is equal to 74. Now, we've almost done this problem. I'm just going to move this to the side. The most important part is that we found out these important magic numbers here. We completed the square. Now, this part is going to be the center of the circle, and this is also going to be the center of the circle. So you can write down this 5, which is your, because it's associated with x, it's of course going to be the x coordinate, and this 6 is associated with y, so it's the y coordinate here. And then what is the radius? That's also actually given to us. It's actually the square root of this number. So the radius is going to be equal to square root of 74. So this is a slightly more complicated problem than the ones that we've been working on, but I think now you know how to find the center and the radius of a circle. Let's try one more problem. Let's try this problem now. This has positive numbers in front of it, but not much is going to change. So as usual, we're going to take 8. You divide it by 2, you get 4. You square it, you get 16. Then you add 16 over here, but of course, let's not forget that we need to add 16 here as well. The same way now, because you know this part, you've got x, but there's a plus here. Remember, it's not a minus anymore. So just copy down the plus over here. And then you've got this magic number 4 over here. You put it over here. And then you square it. The same way, you're going to try to do this part. So you take 10, right? You take 10. You divide it by 2. You got 5. And then you square it to get 25. Okay, so you've got y squared over here plus 10y plus 25, and then you add 25 over here as well, right? So now again you can collect this together and you can write this as y plus 5 squared, and now this one over here is 16 plus 25, right, which gives us 41, and then plus 1 makes it 42. So just collecting these terms together now, we can write this over here, the circle with the center of. Now note that there's no longer an x minus, there's an x plus, which means this actually is x minus negative 4. And this is the term that's going to come in here. Okay, it's not going to be a plus 4, it's going to be a minus 4. That's why this problem is slightly more complicated. And then here, as you would have guessed, you're going to have a y minus negative 5. So you need to have the minus in front of this whole number. So therefore, this negative 5 is going to be the center of the circle. And then the radius is going to be not just 42, it's going to be square root of 42. Okay, the radius is always the square root of this number. All right, now try to solve this problem the same way. You're going to complete the square for this and this value and then try to find the center of the circle and then also the radius. And post your comments in the section below. So remember, we've done 3 different types of problems. One of them is, of course, the basic completing the square. The second is the parabola, finding the vertex. And then the third one is, of course, finding the center and the radius of the circle. Hopefully you like this video. So don't forget to subscribe and share this with your friends. And remember to practice and check out more videos on this channel. All right, till then, bye.